Welcome to the first episode of the main series we'll be doing on this channel, Sinful Reviews. We're going to take a show that I've watched and basically break it down as best as we can without spoilers and review it for you guys. We'll compare it to other shows, we'll talk about its content, talk about what I liked about it, what I didn't like about it, and do my best to be funny and entertaining. Let me know in the comments if you like this format and you want it to continue. Otherwise, I'll experiment with some other things, maybe something more scripted, maybe something more heavily prepared for. But if you guys honestly like this, let me know in the comments. This is just going to be the main show on the channel, the main series. I have other ideas for separate series that I'm also going to do on more broad concepts, and you'll be seeing those soon. So once again, thank you guys so much for being fans. So without further ado, let's just jump in so you guys can see what we're up against. So hot on the heels of watching High School of the Dead, which I definitely did not like as a series, was terrible, just fucking boring and stupid and just idiotic and just irritating in most parts, I ended up watching with my partner Rosario+Vampire. We came upon this on Netflix when we were bored and playing Minecraft. We needed something to do while we were just dicking around. We wanted something to kind of just play in the background. So we searched for Netflix for more of these kind of pervy, pointless, substanceless anime. We had plenty to choose from on Netflix, but we wound up looking at Rosario+Vampire. Started out with an image of this pleasantly pink girl that claims to be a vampire, so we loaded it up to check it out. And to be honest with you guys, first things foremost, we were pleasantly surprised. So, right after watching something like High School of the Dead, which was such a series that was based in, like, pointless, pernicious perversion for the sake of being perverted, clearly on the level of basically porn for porn's sake, we were expecting Rosario+Vampire to just be this same kind of garbage. And as we watched it, it very clearly was going to be that same kind of garbage. Rosario+Vampire hit all those same beats. You had this basic harem anime where hapless guy who has no idea how to talk to girls for some reason and is a completely idiot and aloof, who's basically supposed to be your stand-in for typical nerd guy or typical geeky guy to fulfill his nerd fantasies of suddenly having women thrust their vaginas at him, finds himself in the company of several women who for some reason or another desperately want him, despite him having no character whatsoever, despite him having no characteristics whatsoever, barely even a personality, just some weak guy who's mostly useless and mostly averse to women for some reason. So we get into watching this and it starts off already on a lot of weird premises, which it gets credit for, actually. Honestly, I give it points for starting off with a unique and interesting premise, and the premise here started out interesting. Kinda like High School of the Dead did, kinda like Sword Art Online did, started with an interesting premise, and you think it's gonna have the same problem, that it's just gonna go somewhere for about half a second and then just fucking bullshit tank that shit into nothing territory, but it still pleasantly surprised us. The premise starts off with Yokai School, a school for monsters.
School for monsters! School for lonely little monsters!
Basically, a high school where all these little monsters all go to school to learn separate from humans, and our main character, Skune, finds himself somehow accidentally attending this high school. He finally gets admitted into this high school. It's the only high school that seems to admit him, or something like that, and winds up getting in accidentally. His parents are super thrilled, and he goes off. Now, they already break their own rule in the anime. When anime set up their own rules, they should keep to those rules as best they can, and if they break those rules, they need to have a good reason. I think it's a really cool thing if an anime can take a set of rules and come up with this idea that this is how it's supposed to be, this is how it's supposed to go down, and then purposefully do that just to break that rule to impress us. That's an awesome thing you can do if you do it right. But if you just make up the rule and then break it without so much as any kind of fanfare just because it fits the story better, that ends up being stupid. This idea that I've come across where, I'll talk about this in other videos, where don't punish me for paying more attention. When a show does something, you want to pay attention to it. When a show does something interesting, you want to pay attention even more. When a show grabs your attention, that should be a good thing. So then a show shouldn't grab your attention and then punish you for paying attention by doing really stupid things that are easily explained as being stupid. Basic, right? Understandable, reasonable, probable, whatever. Let's move on. So right away it breaks this rule. How did he get in? But at least throughout the show they mention, like, no, that shouldn't even be possible. He shouldn't even be able to get in. The first thing our Mr. Skune does is he runs into the titular Rosario+Vampire, which is a weird translation basically meaning a vampire with a rosary, right? Like, that's basically what I figured it kind of meant. He runs into this rosary vampire named Mocha. She instantly falls in love with him because that's how these fucking shows work.
Well, if that's the case, maybe we could be friends. What do you think?
But it's interesting, there's a bit of a Twilight thing going on here where she's super into him because he smells tasty. She can smell his human blood and totally wants to drink it. Because she likes the taste of his blood so much, she wants to hang out with him and finds out that he's a human. And naturally, there's so much going on here. Right away, we're introduced to the sexual nature of this show. There's so many freaking panty shots. We got the infamous cameraman from High School of the Dead again. To the point of being ridiculous. Like, fucking Christ, man. Nobody has that point of view, and it's obvious that you're, like, tripping over yourself to drop the camera down below the waistline. But whatever, fine. It's, yeah, you know. It's irritating, and it takes away from the entertainment value in my mind. But when me and my partner watch it, we mostly just laugh when we see that. So we did that as well for High School of the Dead, but it got annoying very quickly to the point where it's like, you're so obviously doing this for the sake of, hey, pause and jack off, pause and jack off, pause and jack off, pause and jack off. Then there's nothing else in between. There's no substance, no story, no entertainment. I like this better than High School of the Dead. And I liked High School of the Dead, even though I hate it. It could have been really cool. It had amazing action, amazing gore. It was an amazing premise, but it was too bogged down trying to be a porno. But this show was more playful, more ridiculous. I'd compare it a lot to Pokemon, frankly, except instead of catching Pokemon, you catch titties. And maybe syphilis. We're watching these stories play out, and the basic idea, much like many serials like your Pokemon or your Supernatural, there's a lot of small separate stories that exist on their own that have minor amounts of the general plot. So the way this story basically plays out in each episode is that we have our protagonist, Skune, and his not-girlfriend Mocha Frappuccino, basically going through misadventures and trying to avoid Skune being outed as a human. He's basically pretending to be a monster in this school. They encounter other monsters who reveal their monster forms. There's an interesting fight, and this is where we see the meat of the series. Mocha Frap has a rosary on her neck. This rosary contains her vampire powers. Every time the rosary is pulled off of the necklace, Mocha Frappuccino transforms into her badass vampire form. They make a big deal about this, how that she's super badass, and for some reason she transforms into a completely different person when she's full vampire. The only person who could pull off the rosary is Skune for some reason, but the show never points that out completely. It's more like they kind of say that as long as it's not her, somebody can pull off the rosary. It would have been cool if they really doubled down on that and had just somebody random pull it off for her. Would have been interesting. Now, it doesn't make a ton of sense. It's interesting / not interesting at the same time, because it's like, if she's a vampire and she wants to suck blood, why does she need the rosary to contain her vampire power if clearly she's still a vampire and wants to suck blood? So is just her strength contained in the rosary, but she still thirsts for blood? But why the fucking have the rosary in the first place then? What's the point of ever containing? Like, that's so stupid. That's like... Like, I don't get that. That's like, hey, I've got impenetrable skin. I've got physically bulletproof skin, and I get sunburned really easy. But if I wear this necklace, my skin isn't bulletproof anymore, but I still get sunburned. That's really fucking stupid. Like, why would you do... Like, I'm wearing this necklace. It takes away all my strength, but keeps my weaknesses. And she's weak to her vampire weaknesses, too, while she's wearing the... It's fucking stupid! She's still got her problems as a vampire without any of the benefits of being a vampire. That's really fucking stupid. Who put this fucking necklace on her in the first place? This is kind of bullshit. What it ends up serving, obviously, is so that we can have two sides to Mocha Frap, in that she gets to be the sweet, cute, bubbly, ooh, shy girl who gets to, oh, I want to screw Skune.
Sorry, I can't help it.
But then we also get the super crazy, awesome, cool, bitch's back vampire version of her, who's obviously got bigger boobs, bam, better hips, wow, and crazy kicky legs, kabam! So naturally, she's the seductress, sexy tsundere of the series, so we get 2 in 1. Now, I'm rattling off super crazy fast like a lunatic here, but I can't help it because there's a lot I want to say, and there's a lot that needs to be said about this, because as much as it sounds like I don't like this series, as much as it sounds like I don't like this, I want to say, first and foremost, I want to say before we get too far into this, that, yeah, I kind of like this series, and if you want to watch it, and if you don't mind fan service, or if you like fan service, fucking go for it, because this show is a good example of doing it right. Let me lay this down for you. In the beginning of the series, when we first meet Mocha Frappuccino, Skune stumbles and does the old anime cliche where it's like, oh, we fell and my hand's right up your cooter. We get that thing where he might as well touch her vagina and she fucking loves that shit. And we get that typical, oh, anime girls have an orgasm every time you touch any part of their bare skin for no reason. So naturally, this is obviously meant to titillate. This is obviously meant to get you going. This is meant to be like, yeah, fucking... But very soon, we start to get the meat of this series going. We start to get some laid down rules. Basically, in this school, the monsters are being taught to possibly in the future coexist peacefully with humans. That's already a really interesting take. Now, of course, this whole little plot device is also meant as kind of a bullshit tidy up thing. The monsters are all told that they basically always have to be in human form. Oh gee, that's fucking convenient. You mean this anime that's supposed to mostly be about monsters is actually gonna be 90% fucking normal ass humans walking around? Isn't that convenient for the budget? I felt that way watching this, but I was pleasantly surprised at how much and how often they actually did show monster transformations, and how they often did show many unique monsters and interesting transformations. One of the things I really liked was this little bit.
Dude, you do realize that you're out of your human form, right?
Oh, damn it. I must have transformed while I was sleeping. Looks like you did too, bud.
What?
There's these little touches that really point out like, oh yeah, cool. Like, if you can smile and be like, that's pretty cool. I appreciate that. Hey, Rosario+Vampire, I appreciate that you did that. That made it more entertaining for me. Good job. They put some effort into this, and that's what really counts. And honestly, I can't say that enough. Putting effort earns you points. Putting some effort into something besides cheap-ass fucking, hey, jack off to this material is a really big win for me. Because if you want to make plain, boring, shiftless, effortless porn, just do that. Just do the, oh, the pizza man's here. Is there any other way I can pay? You might as well just do that. If you're not going to bother with doing good entertainment, just make pointless, effortless porn. There's plenty of it out there, but they're afraid to do that because there's no money in it, because it's too easy to get it for free on the internet. So then you get these weird things where they try to pass it off as actual entertainment while simultaneously being pretty much porn. Honestly, it deserves ridicule, because if you want to be smut, just be smut. But if you want to be art, you gotta actually try to be art. And I can honestly say that Rosario+Vampire at least tried, and honestly kind of succeeded. So how nice that the budget of this is going to be thanked, but it actually turns out really interesting. Some of the encounters we get are just plain bizarre, just plain bananas. One of the encounters is a pervy werewolf who peeps on girls and snaps pictures of them changing, and tries to pin the act on Skune and get him in trouble. It makes you sit down and think. Sometimes I see these things, sometimes I watch these shows and I think, are they actually fucking geniuses and they're doing an insanely high-level self-parody of themselves and I'm just not seeing it? This is one of those times where I'm like, he's a pervert. He's clearly a pervert. And I'm not talking about Werewolf Man, I'm talking about Skune. Mr. Panty seeing nosebleeding Skune is clearly a pervert. Like, that's the way the show presents him. That's the way he's presented constantly throughout the show. I mean, there's no other way to put that, really. Now, to be fair, there's a lot of times where he's forced into those perverted things, but there's plenty of times where he's doing it on his own. And the other aspect of that is, this show paints you, the viewer, as a pervert. This show is clearly trying to appeal to you what they perceive as a pervert by like, hey, check out that sweet low camera angle. Look at those panties. Look at that booty.
I wish this was the real Yukari, not just a picture.
Obviously, the show is painting its viewer as a pervert, and yet here the show is condemning perverts. The show is basically saying, how dare he look at those women undressing? Isn't that awful that somebody would do that? That's terrible that someone would do that. How dare somebody do that?
Skune, I hate perverts!
That's what the viewer's doing. You're presenting this to the viewer and you're shoving it in their face. Your viewers are perverts and you hate like, fucking weird. There's even a part later in the show where they show stalkers and act like that's bad, but then it's like, well, what the fuck is the cameraman? What's the viewer in this? The viewer is a stalker constantly following these women around and we're meant to drool over them. Like, what the it seemed very hypocritical. It's kind of bullshit. It was here that I was really starting to think that this show wasn't going to be good, but it still turned it around on me. We had this situation where, unlike High School of the Dead, Rosario+Vampire never really tried too hard to mix serious right up next to boobies. They never tried to mix seriousness right on top of the fan service. There was no layering of, here's an important narrative while women grab each other's tits. No, they kept those things decently separate throughout the series. It was clear that it's like, hey, this is kind of a serious moment, this is a fan service moment. At least for the most part. Obviously, when you get actiony fight scenes, there was plenty of panty shots. But still, the actiony fight scenes were hardly ever laid out as being super serious. They were just action for the sake of action for the sake of fun. And it was cool. The fight scenes were really weird. There was always an excuse for ripped clothes. That happens all the time, so I'm not going to fault Rosario+Vampire for all of that happening ever. But still, they contribute to it. So there's always excuses and weird sexual poses in the fight scenes. I don't understand that, frankly, but I'm the kind of guy who doesn't understand sex scenes in movies unless they serve part of the plot. Every time Mocha Latte got in a fight, she'd be all dominatrix about it, and that's always kind of sexual. They have to turn everything a little bit sexual. So they made Mocha Latte have always a domineering kind of thing. Every time she'd fight, she'd fucking kick you in the face and tell you to know your place.
It's time for you to know your place.
Under my skirt! Watching these unique monsters each episode come out and seeing what they were going to do and what their point was kind of fun and interesting, and the fan service didn't take too much away from that. The whole premise of the show honestly kind of felt to me like it was clearly for hornballs, it was clearly for horny guys, but it knew what it was. It wasn't afraid. It's clear that this show knows who it's for just by the end of the credits next episode preview. I mean, Jesus Christ, every single episode preview was just an ass wearing a different pair of underwear each time while they previewed the next episode. By the way, at the end of the show, there was a little ongoing gag where she would kiss him instead. Like, she wouldn't bite him to suck his blood. She would kiss him to suck his blood, because that makes sense. Like, they suck blood through their lips, like they have pointy vampire lips. And I swear, every single time they did it, it got more and more sexual.
Cut it out. Come on, Mocha.
But it still chose to up its game. It still chose to put effort into what it was doing. To the point where while I was watching this, there were actually some moments where I had a genuine real laugh, not because the show itself was so stupid, but because the show actually tried and succeeded in making me laugh on purpose. And there were even moments where I got genuinely excited about what was going to happen next. That was decent writing and decent understanding of how to make something interesting, and decent understanding of, hey, you can actually put some effort into your entertainment while having it be jack-off material. Imagine that shit. One of the more interesting things that Rosario+Vampire did was that same thing I mentioned earlier about how it set out a rule, or at least a basis for a pattern, and then subverted that pattern later on. I won't give it away completely. Actually, you know what? It's fine. If you don't want to see a spoiler, just skip ahead by a certain amount that I'll put in the annotations, and you can avoid this spoiler. But early in the show, from the very beginning, we're introduced to a narrator in the form of a little cartoony bat. And this little bat comes around, says a lot of narrative things. He's meant to be a comic relief character, and sometimes he's funny, sometimes he's not. But for the most part, he actually is kind of seen as annoying within the context of the show. So the show knows he's a little bit annoying, and plays off of that for us. That was really cool too. But one of the main things they set down is that after every main episode battle in the series, this little bat cartoon character comes up and recites out how long this episode's battle took, breaking the fourth wall, telling us this battle took 38 seconds.
This episode's showdown took a mere 76 seconds. Whee!
And they do that throughout the show. At one point in the show, towards the end, we get a huge surprise in which he comes out to tell us how quickly the battle ended, and then we get this awesome surprise that the main bad guy hasn't been knocked out yet. So it was a cool little thing. It was just a nice little oh shit moment, like, oh fuck, it didn't end quickly, they're still going. What the fuck? So yeah, that was a neat little thing. Now, out of the spoilers. Some of the things that irritated me was there were two narrators. Like, it was really weird. There was the little cartoon bat that narrated, right? And then there was fucking Skune would narrate his letters to his mom and dad.
Dear Mom and Dad,
I'm gonna get laid! But the two narrators thing, there was the little cartoon bat narrator, and then every time Mocha Frappuccino transformed into her badass vampire form, there's another narrator that just fucking tells us what's happening, and it's kind of annoying because it's kind of hand-holdy.
When the rosary seal over her breast is removed, Mocha's innocent self vanishes, and her inner vampire awakens.
Whenever Mocha Frappuccino pulls off her stupid fucking necklace, she turns into a badass vampire bitch with huge titties. That really irritated me. There didn't need to be two separate narrators. It's like having a title screen with 3 separate fonts. But that might have been a problem just with the English translation, but I definitely see that still happening in the Japanese dub. All in all, I've said a lot of random shit about this show, I've said a lot of random things, but I will say, there's a lot of moments that seem very hypocritical in the show, but there were genuine laughs, genuine surprises, and frankly, if you ask me, if you want to do a fan service show that exploits women and just plays off of perverted ideas, and by the way, stupid ideas, I want to point out another thing. There were a lot of cliche and idiotic things in this series, and stuff like this can be problematic sometimes. Stuff like this can be bad, and we can sit down and talk for an hour or more. We can sit down and talk for years about whether or not media affects people in their development stages, or whether or not media can affect your behavior. Yeah, we can sit down and talk about that, but I think that your average person can be smart enough to understand that this is not real life. But the thing is that sometimes you need to know that distinction ahead of time. You don't just automatically realize it. Anybody can attest to the idea that sometimes shit wasn't the way you thought it would be because of TV, and you were kind of annoyed by it, frankly. I mean, hell, there's memes about this shit. Why can't real life be like video games? Why can't real life be like TV? Yeah, if there's memes about this shit, then obviously there's a feeling of wishing stuff were more like TV. So I think if you watch something like this, something that's fan servicey and exploits women and has a lot of perversion in it, I think that it's very important if you can sit down and enjoy it, but it's more important that you understand going into it that that's not how women actually act. There's a lot of these cliches and stupid things in movies and TV. They depict all these stereotypes of women, and I'm going to be real with you guys right now. There's a lot of stereotypes of men too, and lots of guys will try to use that as defense. No, they're both bad. Let's talk about both.
Gorgeous. It's not what you think. Really, I'm sorry.
Both of those. Men don't act this way, and men aren't supposed to act this way, and women don't act this way, and women aren't supposed to act this way. It really sucks when there are real life people who reinforce those stereotypes by actually being that way, but doesn't that prove it that there are people out there who are maybe dumb enough or desperate enough or tired enough to actually let these things affect them and turn themselves into walking, talking cliches right out of the TV? So that's all the more reason to be like, all right, we need to go out in the world understanding that this isn't how people act. And I want to address some of those cliches. You look at some of the shit with the women in Rosario+Vampire about they support all these cliches about, oh, women are always fighting, women are always ridiculous, women are always stupid.
See, I came here to make a declaration of war. A declaration of war? Yeah, that's right. I've got this big plan, but you keep getting in the way and messing it up, Mocha. What plan? Oh, let me explain. My plan is to turn all the boys in this school into my personal love slaves.
There's a lot of that in there, but they do a great job of turning that around as well. So they get a ton of points for that, where they do show not in spades and not 100% equal, but that's not their job. But they do show examples of women having good, strong, long-lasting friendships. They do show good examples of women interacting, even if those women are already weird cliches who for no reason fall in love with Skune.
Oh, my Skune, I just love you to death!
But they still show it, and they get tons of points for that, even if they don't do it 100% equally, because like I said, that's not their job. Their job is to at least show it, though. As long as you show a little bit, give a dog a bone, man, just a little bit. Same thing with the men.
Look at her grabbing and squeezing Mocha's fun bags. It's just not fair!
And with fucking Skune being this blank slate everyman, he does a lot of stupid shit that men don't do and men aren't supposed to do. And yeah, there are some guys who are cliche like that, but there are good examples in the show as well. You skip over some of these cliche things like, oh, the man's supposed to protect the women, the man's supposed to do this. That isn't in this show. Most of the time, because Skune is a human, Skune has actually no power to fight any of these monsters, and he's actually being protected 100% of the time by the women who like him. That's an interesting take on this whole idea, where normally the cliche would be that the man's big, strong man supposed to protect the women. It's interesting and cool to see that, and frankly, they get a lot of points, again, for doing that. So we get around this whole perverted idea of men are perverts, men are monsters and animals who can't help themselves around beautiful women.
Mocha's mine, you hear? So back off!
But we also get this idea of, here's this weak, idiotic guy who is still depicted as a good guy, and there must be something redeeming there that all these women seem to like. So there's good depictions and bad depictions throughout the show. That's awesome. That's good. Fair is fair. Good is good. bad is bad. You know, we take what we can get. So I think anybody is well within their right to watch and enjoy these things. But the biggest thing is, if you can go into this show understanding that these cliches are in fact cliches, understanding that there are some things that are very common in media that are just not true in real life, then you can take it with a grain of salt and then enjoy the show for what it is. A big, dumb summer kind of thing that's a little bit funny, a little bit actiony, a little bit horny, and that's okay. There's nothing really inherently wrong with that. It's the way you present it, what you do with it, and what you choose to do with it that can be the problem. And like I said, when you put them side by side, personally, for me, I put High School of the Dead right next to Rosario+Vampire, and clearly Rosario is better. Provides the fan service that these people want, but also provides some fucking entertainment because they put some effort into it. Thank you. Put a little bit of writing, put a little bit of interest, put a little bit of story. Clearly this little show did a great job of doing it, and they managed to get a good story in while they were at it. Bottom line, guys, I recommend this show. If you like a little bit of fan service, or if fan service doesn't bother you that much, but you want a little kind of no-brainer, slightly good action, story-oriented anime, this is something decent to watch. It's got a little bit of interesting lore. It does a good job of presenting that lore and presenting the monsters and presenting halfway decent action scenes. It's better. It's what it should be. If you're going to be a pervy anime, put some effort into the entertainment and you win in my book. You get a plus. And that's what this show did. It just managed to skirt above don't watch it, because it's just entertaining enough that you don't regret watching it. And I think if you manage that, then you've done your job, especially considering you're trying to be just a pervy anime. I feel like you've succeeded there. If all you want to do is make a silly, pervy anime for people for tissue fodder, then you're doing a good job because you did a little bit of entertainment there. Good for you. Nice work. I don't regret watching this. And that fucking opening scene, I could not stop humming the Attack on Titan theme to it.